Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special Books in Hindsight and Encounters USA podcast and video. Today, we've got author Tom Cantrell talking about his book, Sasquatch, Face to Face. Coming up next. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Encounters USA with author Matthew Hines. If you're looking for alien incidents, Bigfoot brouhahas, or Dogman dealings, we have the podcast interviews, field research, and field interviews you're gonna love. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and check us out on Patreon. Now, on with the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special Books in Hindsight and Encounters USA podcast and YouTube channel. Now, the fact of the matter is, we have author Tom Cantrell, who is going to be talking about his book, Sasquatch, Face to Face. But before I let Tom start talking about his wonderful new book, I want to explain to everybody out there that this is a really special occasion, not only because we have Tom on here, Tom the legend in the Bigfoot research field, but also that this is going to be a simul kind of podcast between Encounters USA and my Books in Hindsight podcast. Now, if any of you are real Books in Hindsight fans, you know we haven't done that podcast for almost 2 years. So because I've just recently gone back and done some things because of changes in the technology, I've learned there's all kinds of stuff to do with publishing now that when I began publishing back in 2005, I didn't know. So I actually revived Books in Hindsight because what I think is important is not only to talk to authors, but to compare the publishing and writing process and marketing and everything else you got to do with other authors and authors like Tom Cantrell. So Tom, you're going to be a great example today because we're going to be talking about not only your book, but you've got an extensive library of books. You also have your own publishing firm, which I'm dying to hear about. And then, of course, we just want to hear about your experiences both, of course, in writing that book, the Bigfoot stories, and anything else you want to share with us as authors and fans of yours. So Tom Cantrell, officially welcome to Books in Hindsight and Encounters USA.
Well, thank you. I'm doing double duty today, huh?
Yes, you are, but you're not getting paid anymore. So.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, does that mean I get twice my usual stipend?
No, I don't want to hear from your agent. So you just put that puppy on a leash. All right. So, Tom, let's start off with the book. The book is Sasquatch, Face to Face. You were holding up a copy there a second.
This book is a compilation of 32 different instances of people having encounters face to face. There are two in there that you could argue weren't really face to face, but close enough. Okay, and I included them because they are such good evidence. They're from across North America, from Georgia to Canada, and they're happen to everyday people. There's things that happened to people that were 5 years old at the time, and things that happened in at my age, about 133. It feels like some days, but
Well, Tom,
what I've done is compiled these accounts, taken their accounts, and compiled them and wrote them in, in decent English, and so it makes it readable and acceptable to most people. and put them together in an anthology form. Some of them are just, stories. Others are absolutely compelling. I have a story of Richard Taylor and his encounter in Oklahoma. And this has been around for a few years now. I knew Richard when it happened. And a federal agent who all of a sudden finds himself in the midst of a whole family group. And I'll leave it to you to read to see what happened. But his story is very compelling.
That's amazing. So you have a federal agent. What other kinds of people do you have having encounters in the book?
I have a 5-year-old picking blackberries, and reaches across the bush, and a hairy hand holds the bush up for him to pick the blackberries. Mm-hmm. And he goes into great detail of what went on, how that transpired. I have several stories of multiple stories of teenagers and their first encounters. What happened? A teenage girl camping with a bunch of her teenage girlfriends, and the pandemonium that broke out there. And it's from that to a night in a tent in vocal communication, verbal communications. It's just, I started out to be a light project. This is actually my 13th book I've written, 12th on Sasquatch. But it has rapidly become one of my favorites of all time, just because the things that are related in there, people are, I've always said in my 62 years of research, I wish I had $1 for every time I had a conversation that began with, I've never told anybody this, but.
Well, yeah, Tom, that's what I'm, if I can stop you here, that's what I was going to ask you now. The stories that are in this book, first of all, are these new stories, or because people that are listening are want to know, well, are these going to be new stories? Are they going to be stories that I've heard before? So
a couple you may have heard before. Okay. I've included a couple of mine that I've told of different occasions, okay. But for the most part, they're new.
Okay.
Some of the stuff that's just happening as I was going to press with it. I had to revise it because different things happened, so they're that new. And different people, some very well-known people like Barb Shoup from Squatching with Barb and Gabby fame. All the way to the totally unknown. Mm-hmm. Lynn Gasper, Crystal Panic, Greg Yost, Squatchman. Stories that, just from people.
Right.
And I tried to capture their feelings of the time. One thing that amazed me was the number of times that I get, how scared I was. I was petrified. I couldn't move. Mm-hmm. When in fact, all the being was doing was standing and watching it. Mm-hmm. So where did this fear come from? It came from within.
Yeah.
And I find that to be so true so many times.
Yeah. Yeah, or just that natural. For me, it would be, what is that? And trying to.
No, that goes away in about 32 seconds. You know what that is when your mind locks onto it. Yeah. If you've done any research. Now, that's not in this book. It's one of my other books. But I had a young lady over from England, and we had an encounter. 3 of us in the car. She was in the passenger seat, front seat, and we came around a curve, and there's 2 of them standing in the road right in front of the car. By the time I stopped, we were no more than 20 feet from them. And she just absolutely screamed, "Bigfoot!"
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And our camp, we were 14 miles off the pavement,
Mm-hmm.
and we were still 20 miles from camp. By the time we arrived back in camp, she had convinced herself she had not seen two Sasquatch standing in the road. She had seen two Mexican drug mules wearing long-haired ghillie suits and backpacks with flip-flops on,
Yeah.
because her mind couldn't accept Sasquatch, but it could accept these things because she knew what they were.
Right.
You know,
And it's a more believable story.
and it's a more believable story.
Right.
Her mind would allow her to accept that.
Yeah.
And it took her quite a while before she realized. Finally, it was Arla Williams who said, you know, Jackie, you've traveled 6,000 miles to be here to see what you've seen. And now your mind's not letting you see it.
Mm-hmm.
And that got her to thinking. And it was probably 4 days from that time until I dropped her at the airport in Portland, Oregon. And by that time, she had fully realized what had happened and understood what her mind had done. The fact she was in the mental health care field helped, because she had an idea of what, you know, was able to understand what her mind was doing to her. And of course, today she fully understands and fully accepts it. But these are the type of things that happen with people when they first encounter these beings. They're not dangerous. If you don't, you know, if you don't get between a mother and her child, that's always dangerous to any species, including human, or maybe especially human. Use common sense, and they're not dangerous.
Yeah.
And I was just this morning discussing with one of the contributors her fear, and because she's heard stories of them being aggressive and hurting people. And every story I have ever investigated that involved harm of some type, it was always instigated by the human.
Yeah.
And they were defending themselves. Falk Creek, Arkansas, Honolulu Massacre, the one in Washington, Southwest Washington, the miners, all of it. They were done. It was at the instigation of the humans, not of the Sasquatch people.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely something that could be argued. And, you know, I'm no real big expert, but I would really almost argue that because of, you know, just because of the missing people. But Tom, I don't want to go down that trail, that dark and gloomy trail in this podcast. But let's talk about, you just talked about you have contributors. And so I imagine you're a magnet, like you said. You've had so many people come up and say, I've never said this before, but so I imagine you have hundreds of Bigfoot stories that you could have used, correct?
I do. And matter of fact, I have enough right now. I could write 2 more volumes of the same type of book if I wanted to. I picked the most compelling, those that serve to illustrate a particular point, and to pass that along. Because, you know, there's no sense in presenting it if you don't make a point with what you're doing. And the fear thing is one thing. That's mostly within us. Virtually, I tell people, you know, I'm 77 years old. I've been doing this for 62 years. And if you have one you think's aggressive or dangerous, call me. I'll come stand between you and him. It's that simple. That's how much I understand them and their meaning. Yes, there have been people go missing, but there's lots of things in the wilderness that cause people to go missing and have nothing to do with any of the animals that live out there. Yeah, and but that again, like I say, that's a bit of a departure, but that's part of what the message of this book is. Mm-hmm. You've got to learn to control your own fears if you want to have success in meeting these people. And make no mistake, they are a people. Their DNA shows that.
Okay, Tom, but let's talk about, you said that you want to prove a point, and one of them is about the fear factor. What other points are you trying to prove with this book?
Buddy Matthew Hines here for Encounters USA. Do you wish everything was free? Do you wish you didn't have any bills to pay? Well, here at Encounters USA, we're wishing that a lot. Unfortunately, it just hasn't come true yet. So we'd like you to consider a purchase of Deceptions of the Ages, Mormons, Freemasons, and Extraterrestrials. It's available at Heinessight.com in an autographed edition. Otherwise, you can pick it up in paperback or ebook wherever fine books are sold. Now, back to our thrilling podcast.
That they exist, that there is solid evidence of their existence. I don't ever want that proven to science. I don't want it proven to government, because the last thing I would ever want is for government to have to take ownership of the fact that they exist. You take a look at our governments, if we still have ones, track record with indigenous peoples, and it's not very good. Okay, and I don't want them. First of all, you can't control them. They're not anything to be controlled by humans whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. And with the special interest groups we have, there would be total chaos, absolutely total chaos.
Okay.
You've got to remember, our government, such as it is run by special interest groups.
And stupid people.
And stupid people. That's stupid people that the special interest groups.
The smart people are in the special interest. The stupid people are the ones that get elected. So,
yeah, that's my point. If a politician's first job when he's elected, he has one job, and one job only, and that's to get reelected.
Yep,
and he will do anything to affect that.
Yeah.
So if friends of the deep earth come to him and say, we have $100,000 to contribute to your campaign if you vote this way, if you introduce this legislation. If you don't, we'll give it to your opponent. What's he going to do?
Yep.
Okay. And that's how our government works.
Yeah.
Look, it's been 8 years.
Yeah.
Getting the gray wolf delisted as an endangered species. It finally happened this last week.
Yeah. Well, Tom, now hold on. Let's go back to this politics thing, because there's one thing I wanted to share with you. I don't know if you kept up, but I ran for the
I knew you did.
House of Representatives, and I was really upset because I wasn't able to keep one of my campaign promises. And you know what that was?
Which one was that?
Well, that was where I said if I got behind my opponent, because my last name is Hines, I could always catch up.
You could always catch up, yeah. So
but unfortunately, I didn't. So, but that's okay. So that's a whole nother ball of wax, because
it is. But that's the rationale that I use for not wanting them proven to science.
Well,
they're doing quite well on their own.
Yeah,
they're not endangered. Their population, they keep their population stable. They keep it low. They only have young once every 7 years in order to keep that population in control.
Okay. Well, here's something, Tom, that I really hadn't planned on talking about. But since you're talking about the government and owning this, the government appears to be owning UFOs now and saying, officially saying that, these come from some other extraterrestrial race, and nobody even bats an eye. And for 70 years, they've been destroying people's lives, saying, it'll ruin society. Nobody even blinked an eye. So if they say there's a Bigfoot, not Bigfoot, and it goes again back to the government thing, where because of how they have the media and you've got a TV everywhere you go, they're really able to just control how people think now. So
they do.
So nobody.
And you've got a mindset in the country, an owe me mindset. Since I'm here, you owe me.
Yeah.
And that doesn't bode well. You've got people that are out to achieve their ends by any methods imaginable. Can you imagine? These groups who want to keep us out of the wilderness areas, how they would react. They would be after them to shut down absolutely everything in the name of protecting Sasquatch. They don't care about Sasquatch. They just want you out of their area, out of that wilderness area. You know, that's all that's about. And they'll use whatever they can to do it.
Well, where are those people now? I mean, I wouldn't mind them.
They're called PETA. They're called the Sierra Club. They're they're called Fun for Animals.
Okay.
You know,
I like Tom. I'm a conservative, but I'm also, I like the environment. I like to go camping. I like.
Oh, I do too. I love it. I do everything I can to protect it.
Yeah.
But you can be part of it and still protect it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
you don't have to exclude everybody from it.
Okay.
Caterpillar had an advertisement a few years ago, and their catchphrase in it was, "There are no easy decisions. There are no easy courses. There are only wise decisions." And that's the point we are. There is nothing easy about any of it, but there are wise decisions that can be made. But those can't be made when you're polarized.
Yeah. You
have to have the best. Pardon my. I'm old.
I know what you're saying.
You have to have at heart the welfare of what you're trying to protect, and that doesn't mean protection doesn't mean exclusion from. Okay.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah.
We can coexist. We can live together. It can be done. It has been done for what, 35 million years, or not 35,000 years, 35 millennia at least, since we've been a viable people. They predate us by probably 15 millennia. Yeah. And, and we haven't had any problem, mainly because they have chosen not to deal with us for the most part, which to me proves their intelligence.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. You just, you really just have to go to a campground to figure that out in 5 minutes. All right. So, Tom, we talked a little bit about current events, and I don't really want to let you get away without commenting a little bit as somebody who has got wisdom, has been around for a while. First of all, the coronavirus, I was watching you during that on Facebook, and you're talking about, you're being tested, and what happened, in your facility.
Okay, yeah, on the 26th of March, the facility where I lived, Enumclaw Health and Rehabilitation, we had 59 residents, okay? They tested us, and 56 of the 59 tested positive. That was on the 26th of March. By the 1st of May, 1/2 of those who tested positive were deceased. We had 28 people die. Okay.
Are you?
I had the virus, and I lived through it. Wow. I was never so sick in my life as I was for about 4 days there, but I came through the other end, and I'm now no longer in that facility. I'm living in what's called assisted living, which means I have my own apartment. You can see my bookshelf behind me.
Yeah.
Great. And but I do have help if I need it.
That is horrible.
Yeah.
All right. Because all those people in New York, it looked like they just dumped people with the coronavirus into the nursing homes so they wouldn't have to pay for them anymore. It really looked like Cuomo was on a cost-cutting measure to me, and it looks like mass murder. And I think that probably these Democrat governors, eventually they should be put on trial for it. But that's just me.
I'll tell you right now, and this may sound controversial, but government health care, under whatever name you want to call it, is mass murder.
Yeah.
For me to try to get a doctor is almost impossible. because I'm on Medicare. Okay, only one doctor in 20 will even take Medicare.
Wow.
Okay, if you look, I have upper teeth and no lower teeth. Okay, because I can't get that on Medicare.
Wow.
There's no dent, and even to get these uppers, I had to travel from where I live in Enumclaw, which is 40, 50 miles south of Seattle, all the way to the other side of Seattle, the University of Washington Dental College, to even get the uppers.
Wow.
Okay, if you're on Medicare, you're at the bottom of the list on everything.
But they're saying they're going to put everybody on Medicare, and then everybody's going to have health care. I guess that's not right, is it?
It doesn't appear to be that way. I mean, it takes me, if I need a specialist, it takes me from 4 to 6 months to see a specialist.
It's almost
because nobody will take Medicare.
Yeah.
They pay 10 cents on the dollar, and if you don't cross every T perfectly and dot every I perfectly, they bump the whole thing.
Wow.
And it's become ridiculous, absolutely, totally ridiculous. I moved here to the west side of Washington from the desert eastern side because I thought I could get better medical care 3 years ago, and it's been absolutely atrocious. It's been a nightmare.
Wow.
And it's just unbelievable. So I spent in that other facility 16 weeks in a 10 by 10 room by myself.
Jeez.
Prisoners are treated better than that.
Yeah.
At least they have an exercise yard. I did not open the door to my room for 16 weeks.
Oh my. When is this?
That was between March 26th and 16 weeks after that.
Holy man, oh man. Wow. Well, there's a book right there. All right. Well, Tom, let's not stay on this topic. It's just horrible, and we could just talk about this all the time. Okay, so what comments do you have right now about what's going on with the election?
I haven't paid any attention to it, to be truthful with you. If I could have found a none of the above, that's the one I would have chosen.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, it makes no difference, and I'll tell you why. I have a teacher. He's 9 foot 3 inches tall and very hairy, and he does not even let me talk politics. He said there are young people to do that, and it doesn't make any difference anyway, because those who are elected are not in control.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
Maybe he should run.
And, yeah. So whichever one is sitting in the office is not going to make any difference.
Yeah.
They're going to do what the special interests want them to do anyway.
Yeah.
And the fact that you have idiots, I mean, you've got idiots in charge of the asylum. It's unreal. And then you have something we've never had before. We have a press that lies to us.
Yeah.
And that's atrocious. When I was a young man, we had a president by the name of Kennedy. We had a problem come up. The goal was to solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Now there may be a left-hand side of the aisle solution for that problem and a right-hand side of the aisle solution for that problem, but the goal was to solve the problem. Today, that's no longer true.
Yep.
The goal today is to embarrass the other side.
Well, it's to exploit the problem and make sure it never goes away.
Never waste a good crisis.
Yep.
Who said
It
that?
never goes away. So, all right, Tom. Well, this stuff is so depressing, and people don't really listen to this podcast to hear about it, but it's going on, and it affects you. It's really affected you, and it's affected everybody. So
it has, and I've lost my faith in it. I love my country, and I'm hating my government.
Yeah. Well, I think that, if I was in your shoes, what's your stake in it anymore? There's not much. I still probably going to be around for 20 or so more years. I just can't, sit there and do nothing about it. So anyway, that's where I come from. But let's do something about the people that are listening and watching this. Let's talk a little bit, Tom, about the publishing process. Now,
Publishing, my first book, Ghosts of Ruby Ridge, I finished in 2002. Okay. It was published in 2009. I spent 7 years getting that published. I have rejection letters from over 100 editors and agents who had never read first word of anything I had ever written in my life.
Yeah.
I always said I wished I had a business that was so successful that I didn't have to prospect for new clientele. And a little aside to this, I was told this story at a conference one day, and a lady asked, okay, if that's the cost of being an author, what's the reward? And that's simple. Somebody says, I read your book and I loved it.
Yeah.
That's payday.
Yep.
Payday has nothing to do with somebody paying for a book. Payday is, I read your book and I loved it.
Yep.
That makes everything worthwhile.
Yep.
Everything.
Yep.
And
I've seen you at conferences. You have a lot of people saying that. So, great. And you have,
fortunately, but you got to remember, I've got a teacher that tells me what to write about. He doesn't tell me how to write it, but he does tell me what to write about. And one final point on that little anecdote. If you have a dream, and my goal with that first book was to see it in print. I didn't care if it sold 3 copies. I knew it'd sell 1 because I'd buy 1. But I didn't care if it sold 3 copies. But to see it in print was my goal. It took me 7 years of writing, of work, of whatever it took to get the job done. Okay. How long will you hold on to your dream?
mm-hmm.
What will you do to meet your goals? Now, since then, after you get the first one, it's easier.
Mm-hmm.
But then I found a system. It started out, it was called Create Space. It was the publishing arm of Amazon. And that's a print-on-demand system. Okay. I write the book. I have edited, proofread. I even design my own covers. And that's all my little publishing company. Then I upload it to them and they print it for me. Mm-hmm. Okay. The only thing I pay for are those that I order for my own use. Okay. Initial order, I ordered 100 copies of the first book. They came in last Tuesday and sold out in 4 hours.
Wow.
That's never happened to me before, but I was so tickled. So I ordered another supply of them, so they'll be in next Tuesday. And so I get them that fast. I ordered them on Tuesday and they'll be here next Tuesday. I set my own prices for what I want them to sell for. If Amazon sells them, and they do, they sell a lot of them. I also publish in Kindle on Amazon. Mm-hmm. And the neat thing there, the only way I know they're there is once a month I look at my checking account and it goes up a little. They make a deposit. Of course, that's about 2 months behind actual sales, but that doesn't make any difference. I've been doing it for several years now, since 2009, 2010. So it doesn't make any difference what month it was.
So Tom, I have to ask you, as you know, for all the writers listening, it sounds like you really had some success with this last book. Have you seen that before, or is this the first time?
I've had success before, but never the instant success I've had with this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any reason?
I don't know. Maybe it's the subject,
Uh-huh.
but even I do write some novels. Matter of fact, my last book was a novel, and I do that for a specific purpose. If there's something about Sasquatch that I want to relate that's important, but it's controversial, I'll put it in a novel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The story will be a novel, but what I'm saying about Sasquatch is fact. It's real.
Yeah.
It's what is. Okay. And the reason I do that is simple. The haters can't hate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ghosts of Ruby Ridge, my first book, was about one of the characters was a neo-Nazi militia colonel. And I tell people, hey, I could have made him gay. He couldn't have done a thing about it. I'm total control of what I write there.
Yeah.
So if you don't like what I've written about Sasquatch, it's a novel.
Yeah.
But to the people,
I think I just heard the FBI things turn on, the record thing.
Yeah. But it's there. They can read it. If they want to believe it, they can believe it. If they don't want to believe it, that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't have time for the naysayers. I have too many wonderful people wanting to know more.
Yeah.
Wanting good information. And that's what this book does. It's not just my experiences. There's 32 experiences in there.
Yeah.
Okay. And these people are not just random stories.
Mm-hmm.
These people were vetted.
Yeah.
You look at if you want to know something about a person, look who his friends are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But look at me. I don't have any friends.
No, I know.
What does that tell you?
I looked you up on Facebook, and it said Matthew who? Yeah.
Exactly.
No.
All the people you see that are my friends are people I owe money to.
There you go. They do remain good friends,
Stay
don't
in
they?
touch. Yeah. So yeah,
But, yeah. It's probably the genre of this book, plus the fact that I've probably been talking about it more because I've been advertising for more, input to it.
yeah,
And so people knew about it ahead of time. And there's a lot of people who stories are in it, that they're excited that their story is in there.
yeah.
And they share it. And so maybe that's why. But it doesn't matter. The fact that people are getting good information is what matters.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a couple of things here. I think that people like to hear stories about Bigfoot, and not about people's theories about Bigfoot, but real encounters. And I think that really strikes a chord. And how many podcasts, whatever, just are based on just encounters with Bigfoot or Dogman or whatever. So
right.
I think you really touched on something there, and I think that is really a correct genre. So, Tom, just for a second now, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to try to pay some bills, and then we're going to come right back.
Hello, everybody. Matthew Hines here for Books in Hindsight. Very quickly, I'd like to remind you that in order to pay our bills and meet our costs, we also have a bookstore that we offer great books by myself. We'd like you to take a look at Deceptions of the Ages, Mormons, Freemasons, and Extraterrestrials, available at Heinessight.com in an autographed edition, as well as at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Nook, etc. in ebook form. All right then, so let's go back and listen to another great author.
So Tom, we're back and we're talking about the editing, the publishing process, or not so much the editing and publishing process yet. I want to get into that. Right now, Tom has just told us that he's had success with his books, and we're just trying to pin down what he thinks is why. And I think it's just that people like to read about those kinds of encounters. And if you have any advice or whatever for Tom, leave it in the comments and let Tom know what you want to read about, because I don't know if you've seen Tom on this podcast before, but he's been with Bigfoot back since Bigfoot, even back before the $6 million man. So,
Exactly.
yeah. So before
He was only worth about 80 cents then.
Yeah, exactly. So, yep. So Tom has been, he's been there. He's done that with Bigfoot. So if you have any comments or questions now, Tom, how do you have a website that goes along with your?
I do, and it's pretty easy to remember. It's tomcantrell.com.
That is easy. However, I'm going to have to put this on the screen because people might not know about that secret H, the silent H in Tom.
Well, see, there's a reason for that H. My mother named me Thomas, okay? And like I said, I'm 77 years old.
Yep.
And over my 77 years, I've just kind of worn my I's off, and it just left Tom.
Nah. I'm sorry. I was doubting there for a second. Anyway.
That's what it is, just www.tomcantrell.com. I started out, I had another website, and I named it for my first book, GhostsofRubyRidge.com, and it's still active. But it got unwieldy after book number 9, book number 10. I made a rather long title for your website. And so I just decided, why not just redo this, put it in there, my own name.com, and then I could have a page to go wherever I wanted to go. I've got one page, a couple of pages for the books. I'm doing a page right now for Christmas specials. What I've done is I've bundled of the 12 Sasquatch books. I've bundled them together. All the nonfiction are in one bundle, and all the fiction ones are in another bundle, and things like this. Then I have a pick any 3 bundle, and give a little special price on them and free shipping for the holidays. For instance, if people want to do that for Christmas, and I'm in the process of putting that up now. It'll be probably the weekend before I get done, since I have a medical procedure I have to have done tomorrow. And I probably won't be working on it till then. But,
okay. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, Tom. So I don't want to talk too much about your medical procedure, but you are going in for an operation tomorrow. So
no, just it's a series of tests.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
all right.
And I'm losing blood somewhere, and they don't quite know where.
Okay. Have you been around any attorneys lately, or?
We thought about that. I keep telling people, leaking blood isn't bad, but it sure leaves a mess in the driveway in the morning. Actually, it's not coming out. I don't know where it is, and I'm running two pints low on blood all the time. So you can imagine how energetic I am.
Wow. Well, I could say something, but I'm not even gonna. So.
Yeah, the iron in my blood has turned to lead in my butt.
Okay. Well, thanks for saying that. I was going to say, as actually probably wasn't appropriate or, appropriate. All right. So, Tom, you are going in for your operation. So, I wanted to ask you, what's the deal with these sets of books? Are these available from you or from Amazon?
No, they'll be available from me, from my website.
Okay. Now you just went blank on us, so I don't know.
Hang on, what happened? My battery's run down, and I gotta stop it here. I thought I was plugged into the computer, but I guess I'm not. Oh, no wonder that computer. I'm plugged into the wrong computer, and it's not on. Hang on here.
Yeah, I'm gonna hang on. And while you're doing that, because if I end this, it's a huge hassle to have to send you a new meeting. And then, of course...
No, hang on, because I'm right here. I just had to turn the other computer on, the one this is plugged into, on.
Yeah. Well, the only problem is that... There you are. Oh, that did work.
Yeah. Yeah, I just had my... I'm on my iPad on Zoom.
Okay.
And my iPad battery had run down. And so I thought I was plugged in. I thought I had all that covered, but I was plugged into a computer that was turned off.
Come on, Tom. When I do
when you have 2 laptops, a desktop, and an iPad and an iPod, you get confused who's plugged into what after a while.
Yeah, I know. I can't even handle one I can't handle one laptop. So yeah, I'm just all for it. So anyway, well, I'm glad you're back. And in fact, since you're back, we'll end the show. No, I'm just kidding. No, but Tom, I wanted to ask you about, okay, so the bundles of books, those are available through Tom.
Yeah.
And that is on tomcantrell.com?
Right.
Okay,
They'll be up by the weekend. They'll be
Okay.
available. And, I think probably the one that's going to be most popular is the any three bundle. Just pick any three of the books, and that's a special price plus free shipping.
Okay.
And they'll all come signed. And if a person wants them dedicated to somebody, I can do that too. It's no problem.
Well, I just, not to plug you too much here, Tom, but these could end up being real collector's items because, things happen, and you are you're the top guy, and I mean, of all the Bigfoot researchers, you're one of the top guys, so more than anybody. So
I had lunch last week with the top guy. I
Who's that?
drove to Yakima with a friend and had lunch with Bob Gimlin.
Yeah.
And Bob's been such a good friend for so long. When I lived over in Eastern Washington, we'd do this twice a month. Either I'd drive to Yakima or he'd drive down to Tri-Cities, and we'd have lunch together. We haven't been able to do it, so I've been over here. And it was sure good to get together again. The guy's 89 years old and still gets around better than I do.
Yeah, I saw him down at that Sasquatch Fest last year, and he's got all these hot women around him. How did he do that?
We were at the Sasquatch Summit a couple of years ago, and Bob's standing there between 3 or 4 ladies. And when I came up, I was, Bob, I had this urge to see a pretty girl, and I knew that in order to do that, I was going to have to find you because that's where they'd be.
Yep. The magnet.
Somebody asked us one time, we were sitting together, and we had several women talking to us. And since, how come you guys can attract all the pretty women? Bob says, that's because we're safe. Dang, that thing's not working.
Yeah, he tried that line on me, and I said, "Did your wife buy that, Bob?" So I don't know. Well, Tom, if you can't get that thing going, we're almost out of time here.
Okay.
What I'd like you to do, I mean, we've got your name on the screen.
Give me 2 minutes here. And
I'll do that.
I've got a device I can plug in and plug it in directly into the...
Okay. Because I'll just talk while you're doing that. Don't pay any attention to me, but it's really interesting that you would have gone to had the idea of starting your own publishing company, and that really gets into what we kind of wanted to talk about anyway. As an author, is once you've done the books and things are out, well, what's next for you? And you're back.
Yeah, I changed the one I'm on. The reason I did that just simply is because I do some work for other people, not much, but I've published 4 or 5 books for other people, and so I needed an arm to do that.
Uh-huh.
I can do proofreading, I can do editing.
So this is RS. This is RS Publishing.
Yeah, which stands for Red Stripe, who was my teacher. His name is Zakanisha, but he has a red stripe that runs from the top of his shoulder to over his right hip. And he says that's a mark of his status within his community. And and when I first met him, that was the name that I knew him by. And, but to finish, when I edited Arla Williams' book for her, and I told her that's the only book I have ever edited that ended up with the word cattywampus still in it. For somebody from Oklahoma, you know what cattywampus is.
It means messed up, doesn't it? Kind of not situated.
Crossways, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
See? Well, call me Mr. Vocabulary. All right. So are you still is RS Publishing still working? Is
Oh
it,
yeah, that's my, and I use that as my publishing arm.
okay.
You know, for
So if I want any publishing help, I can come.
help, just yeah.
Okay.
Actually, advice is free. You know,
Okay.
uh,
Good advice.
but if you know, if you're young, the psychiatry 5 cents.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
I think. See, I think I just made this up. I hope I did. But advice is free. Good advice costs a little more.
Yeah, that's right. There you go. No, I'll tell anybody how to go about doing it, and but the secret is good editing, good. I mean, because people are terrible with the English language.
Yeah.
You know, since I started receiving submissions, I've noticed how bad it is.
Mm-hmm.
You want to know something funny? The best rendition I got came from Arkansas. So now, how does that work?
That's not good. I knew guys from Arkansas in the Army. I knew a guy in Arkansas. He said, "I've never written a paper in my life."
Yeah.
How did you get out of high school? So, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But okay, so on the editing topic, you know, a lot of people don't realize when they start to try to be an author is that you don't just edit. You have to know all kinds of things like the type of font you're using. There's like headings, et cetera, et cetera. There are specific fonts. I mean, so people seem to confuse editing and formatting.
They do.
You have
and they are
problems with
totally
that?
different. And you've got to know the rules of English. You can't publish a book with bad English and have it be received. You know, and so few people understand those rules. It's just, like I said, it was a real eye-opener getting in all those submissions and going through them. But I do everything from a buddy read. You know, if you've written something and want somebody to give you an opinion on it, I'll read it and let you know what I think about it. What characters need to be developed better, and you know, and where to go. Too many people assume you know too much when they're writing, and you've got to explain, you know, what your character's doing, where he came from, and you know, without doing that, people are lost. All of a sudden, this person just shows up. The problem I have is I fall in love with my characters. In my last book, my Bray, okay, Ian Alistair McBray, Lady of the Isle of Skye in Bonnie, Scotland, comes to Idaho and learns what Sasquatch is. And I fell in love with him before that was over. And I have a lady friend who lives in eastern Idaho who is 6'6" tall, and my main character in that book I made 6'4" tall. But Becky's the only woman I've ever known that I had to physically look up to. And,
wow!
Believe me, at 6'6", that can be intimidating.
Yep.
And,
wow.
So yeah, there's a lot of real life, and even in my novels, the story's not true, but the concept is. Do you know what I mean? And,
that's probably your agent wanting more money. Tell him no way. So. Well, Tom, you probably have things to go. I think we've got an hour from you, and that is fantastic.
in summation, I'd just like to say that I think this is probably one of the best works that I've ever done, and I urge people to give it a read and let me know what you think. If you have questions, no problem. Come back to me on them, and we'll get it done. Okay?
Yeah, and I saw your things on Amazon on Facebook. It looked like a lot of people are buying that book, and you're getting a lot of really good reviews. People are already coming back saying they loved it. So that is awesome. Well, Tom, I really appreciate you doing the podcast, especially on short notice. And you're the first one that's ever done Books in Hindsight and Encounters USA at the
Okay. All right. Well, if I have to take a bite out of you, it'll only be with the top half because there's no teeth on the bottom half.
All right. Well, that's good to know. Because,
All right.
well, all right.
Thank you very much.
It leaves me something to chew on.
Right.
And I don't leave you down in the mouth. So,
right. So to speak.
So, all right. Well, let me say goodbye to everybody, Tom. And for Books in Hindsight, well, actually, let me say goodbye to you. Thanks for doing the podcast, Tom. Good luck to you. And our prayers are with you, as always.
Okay. Oh, by the way, I want one last shout out. This cover was done for me by Michael Beers, and I think it's absolutely gorgeous.
Michael Beers, can you spell that?
In the world. Beers.
Okay.
It's like 2 beers, okay?
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, thank you.
That. All right, Tom. Well, for everybody, this is Books in Hindsight saying keep on reading, and Encounters USA saying always, especially if you're with Tom Cantrell, watch your back. Thanks for joining us on Encounters USA. Remember, if you have comments, please leave them in the comments section on YouTube and hit that subscribe button and ring that bell while you're at it. Don't forget, if you'd like to be a guest on Encounters USA, just send us an email at encountersusa1@gmail.com and just put podcast guest in the subject line. Now, please remember that all of the guests' opinions on Encounters USA are their own, and they do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the podcast host nor the podcast sponsors. So thank you, and don't forget, when you're out in the woods looking for aliens, Bigfoot, or Dogman, always watch your back.